Welcome back to another episode of the Paycheck to Daycheck podcast. We all know one of the places that resellers love to go sourcing at is Goodwill. Seems like that is what a lot of people post about, either Goodwill thrift stores or their bins, aka clearance centers, that a lot of resellers do find a lot of stuff at Goodwill. Even now, I just went to Goodwill yesterday, and while I'm not finding as much as I used to find, I'm still finding items that will make a good profit. Goodwill, I feel like for a thrift store, is the most popular. It's in almost every single state. However, one thing I am noticing, a lot of people are donating like trash. Some of our local Goodwills, you'll go by the donation center and there is nothing but stuff just dropped there. Like one of them had to rent a big old, like those big roll garbage bins, like the really big long ones that a truck will have to drop off, because they were getting so much crap. Like they're having to spend a lot of time sorting through inventory. I just think a lot of people are using Goodwill now as literally a place where they don't have to use their own trash can at home. They can just go and dump whatever. They're also pricing items higher. The same shirts that we were getting a year ago for $7.99, they're $17.99. So not only do I feel like the quality of items has gone downhill, the pricing has gone. They have been increasing prices. Let me know if that's the same with the Goodwills around your area. What have you noticed? I don't know. Hopefully it's just a fluke. I don't know. But that seems to just kind of be the norm. And I'm just finding less and less, which means I'm having to go out and I'm having to source a lot more and be there when they put new things out. But I feel like there are a lot of other places that you can go to find inventory. And that's what I want to talk about in this episode, give you guys some good ideas. And we have pretty much tried almost every way to get inventory, but hopefully you will hear of some new ones and it will help you get better inventory for your reselling business. I do think thrift stores are one of the best places to find inventory. If you go to Google Maps, which is what I do, and search thrift store, there's probably many thrift stores around you. What I'm seeing, at least in our area, and it can be completely different where you're at, a lot of the better inventory are at these small thrift stores. Maybe they're nonprofits. I know we have one that benefits children's home. There's one that benefits a dog rescue. There's some that are locally owned by people. And I think thrift stores are really good just because they're normally getting their inventory at a very, very low buy cost for free, which technically Goodwill is doing, but let's be real, they are making tons and tons of profit by raising the prices because they know Goodwill is just easy for people and they're everywhere. But some of these smaller ones, same thing, their prices are actually way lower than Goodwill. Unfortunately, in our area, there was one local thrift store and Casey and I were going to it, and oh my gosh, we were finding so much stuff. It was amazing. We were getting full carts. We were getting name brands. We really, that helped our reselling business. We were getting just quality inventory. And one of the nice things that if you guys are going into some of these non-Goodwill thrift stores, see if they offer discounts. At this particular one, if you spent $1,000 a month, they would start tracking you. So they would put you in the system. Once you spent $1,000, you could then get 50% off. That thrift store was listing their shirts at $3, $4. And on top of that, we're getting 50% off. And we didn't have to wait until stuff like at Goodwill. At ours, the colored tag renews every Friday. So it might be the yellow tag on Friday will be 50% off. And then on Thursday of the next week, it goes down to $2. But they're on like a maybe 5 or 6 color rotation. So if the new color comes out, it might be 4 or 5 weeks before you can get that item at 50% off or $2 if it goes to $2 day, making it a little bit more challenging. And I think that's why sometimes we end up paying a little bit more because we know it's a good item. We do get 20% off, but still, it's a little tougher with Goodwill, their colored tag system, versus the thrift store where we could go in at any time and we were automatically getting 50% off new merchandise that was coming on the floor. It was awesome. We found so many golf clubs there. And of course, now it's just a furniture thrift store, and they went from having all these racks of clothing to literally one rack for women, one rack for men, a couple racks for children. I haven't seen any shoes in there, and it's just such a shame because it was our honey hole. It was the one that we were going to all the time, and just consistency. But that's with reselling. You just have to always be open to changing the way that you're doing things and finding inventory. You definitely have to change with the changes and be constantly finding new ways to find inventory. We've started doing live selling on Whatnot. And I feel like a lot of people just think of Whatnot for live selling, but they don't think of Whatnot for sourcing. And a lot of sellers aren't taking advantage of sourcing on Whatnot. Whatnot, honestly, the way it works, it's more of a volume game. Like with eBay, you have an expectation of what you want to get from an item. Let's say you're listing for us on Whatnot, and it could be different for other people, but what we're seeing is it's more of a volume game when it comes to live selling. We'll use our golf clubs, for example. If we are listing a golf club on eBay, we might expect that we're going to sell it for around $30 and charge $9.99 to $14.99 shipping. On Whatnot, when we start the auction, it's unpredictable what it's going to actually sell for. Our average sale price on Whatnot for golf clubs is like $10 to $15 in some shows. Some shows it could be a little bit more, but it's not going to be what we would get if we sold on eBay. It's more of a volume game. Some live sellers in one Whatnot show, we might spend 2 hours doing the show and sell 50 clubs, and then they're out the door. Us, because we have such a low buy cost on these golf clubs, we can afford to kind of sell them all in bulk and get them out of here and recoup some of the money that we, want to make on these clubs. Some people with hundreds of people in their show and they're selling something and it only goes for like $7, $5. Many of the sellers are getting items at a very, very low buy cost, and some of them are running auctions at $1 to $3. Now, here's an example of when I was sourcing on Whatnot. I was in a Hustler Hacks. That's Glenn. I've been to one of his meetups. He's a really nice guy. And he was doing a golf show, and he had some golf shoes. With Whatnot, 9 times out of 10, the buyer is going to pay for the shipping, unless you're running your show where you're the seller and you'll pay for all shipping, which we've never done because we want the buyers to cover the shipping. We don't want to have to factor that in, especially because we're not selling stuff for as much as we normally would on eBay. So I was in one of his shows and I saw him run these Nike shoes. So I'm going to read. So they were $7. And at the time, the max we would have paid would have been $8.77. So if he was running the golf shoes at 1 to 2 pounds, and we bought them, we would be at 2 pounds and we paid the $8.77. We then could buy another item as long as that kept us under 5 pounds and we wouldn't have to pay that $8.77 shipping. So total, I only bought that one pair. It was $16.21. And then we also won a giveaway in a show. So we sold the hat, that was the giveaway, for $24 plus $4.99 shipping. So we earned $19.01. And then we sold the shoes for $31.45 plus $10 shipping and earned $26.23. So between those two items, we earned, after everything, $29.03, even after what we paid. Had we bought more with free shipping, we probably would have made even more money. But I didn't see any other items that I wanted in the show because I joined pretty late. Now, another time I bought some stuff, I actually, with Whatnot, if you haven't signed up for Whatnot and you use a seller referral code, which I'll leave ours in the description and the show notes down below, if you click on that, sign up, and you will get $15 in credit to use on Whatnot. And then I think we get like $5. It's not much, but it's free money. So then you could use that $15 to then buy stuff on Whatnot. The one thing you have to be aware of is sometimes people run their auctions very fast, like they could do sudden death. And that means that it goes from like 10 seconds and then whoever swipes last wins the item. So it doesn't give you a lot of time to look items up. So I would encourage, if you're using Whatnot as a sourcing strategy, go to shows where people are selling a niche. So maybe like you would come to our show and you would either buy a bunch of golf clubs to flip, or maybe we would do a golf polo show or a golf short show, and you would go in there and you could then buy a lot of those items, but also you could use your $15 credit. And because you're in a show where they're like items, you'll know which ones are going to sell. So it's not like, if you were in a show where somebody was selling everything, maybe they're selling a Hot Wheel, and then the next item they sell is a candle, and then the next item they sell is a t-shirt, then you're having to look up those items because you don't have a lot of knowledge. But if you are selling in a niche and you sell a lot of the same items, you could join one of those shows, and then you don't have to worry about having to take the time to look stuff up because you know exactly what something's going to sell for, and you know what your max bid will be. What's crazy is also on Whatnot, I started following them. I had to look at their name. Out Here Flippin', and their names are Justin and Susan. They auction off entire pallets of clothing. It's crazy. I've seen some of them go for $3,000-$4,000, but they've got hundreds of items in there. And there was one that sold for, I forget what it was, like $3,500. And when you looked at it, the buy cost was $10 per item. And they were all brand new with tags. So that could be another way that you could, find inventory on Whatnot, is buying whole pallets, which I think is crazy. And they offer free shipping. So they pay to ship the pallets. Make sure that you're sharing that you are a reseller and what you do, even if it's just part-time, because friends and family then might give you inventory. And that's what happened to us. My sister, she was moving and downsizing from a giant 4-bedroom, 2-story house to a 1-story house. And she had a bunch of stuff and got to the point where she was either going to donate it or she was going to give it to me. So she gave it to me, all the stuff that was left over from having a yard sale, from trying to sell whatever. She just got to the point where they needed to move and she wanted that stuff out of there. And I was able to go through it and get some stuff listed. So that could also be another way that you could source, is just by letting people know what you do. You could post on Facebook Marketplace that you do buyouts or cleanouts, where you'll come and take people's things, and then you can sort through it and get rid of the stuff that is not going to make a good profit. Facebook Marketplace is also a really good place to join the buy-sell groups and to see what people are posting on Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace was where Casey saw the listings for the golf clubs. One was a Conex truck full of some guy who had passed away's 30-year golf club collection. That was the one that he went to and went through everything. I had no idea what he was looking for, so I just kind of stood outside and held all the golf clubs he was setting aside. But he was able to go and pick through that. That was pretty cool, but he wouldn't have known about it if he wasn't looking for those on Facebook Marketplace. And you can always, on Marketplace, save a search. So maybe if you put in golf clubs and save it, then you'll be notified if anybody puts up a listing of golf clubs. Same with any collections. Like, people are sometimes selling off their collections of stuff. I know Ryan with the storage units, he's gotten collections of DVDs, collections of Hot Wheels. So there are different collections that you can look for online, and it could be specified to what you're selling. So golf clubs for us, maybe you sell a lot of Bath and Body Works. You can look to see if people list about that. And then also people getting rid of their reselling inventory. I do see quite a few posts. People could get to the point where they're just done reselling. They don't want to do it anymore. They don't know what to do with their inventory. They don't want to donate it. They don't want to have a yard sale. They just want to get rid of it and try to get the most back for what they paid for the inventory. We did that during COVID. We went and bought out somebody's eBay store, and that was an experience. We didn't realize to do more research on what they were showing us, and it's evident that people source completely different than we do. So make sure you do your due diligence. You're looking up to see how many items they have. They might show you their eBay store and it might say like $13,000 of items listed, but be realistic, because you're obviously not going to pay that much, because you're not going to be able to flip anything if you buy it at a high buy cost. So it's really being able to talk the people down, so that way they're getting some money back, but you're also getting the inventory cheap enough to where you have a lot of room to still profit. Flea markets and swap meets, those are a really good place to go and see if there's inventory. If you guys out there follow Harry Tornado, Josh and Haley, who I honestly adore. I think they are awesome. I hope one day I'll meet them in person. I just love their channel, and they just seem like very, very genuine people. But he does a lot of videos going to a flea market in their local area, and he's always getting stuff for really, really cheap. I just watched a video yesterday. He was buying a bunch of hats, and they buy a lot of that inventory cheap, and then they auction it off on Whatnot. And they do very well. They're very successful. They're also very fun to watch. So if you aren't following them, make sure you do follow them on Whatnot and on YouTube. But that could be another way that you could find inventory. I like the flea market and swap meet ideas because you're person to person, and you have a bigger opportunity to talk the people down in price. And, they're there to make money. They have to pay for their flea market spot, whether it's outdoor, indoor. They're there to make money, but also, they're there to get rid of inventory and to sell. And so sometimes you can kind of offer a less amount if you buy a lot of items. I know with the storage unit biz that we were doing for like 6 months with Ryan, we went into a indoor flea market here in the Mesa area, and we aren't doing that with him anymore. They took over the flea market spot, but I know, we were getting our inventory from storage units, and when you get them in storage units, your buy cost is very, very low. So some of the items we were selling at the flea market were very, very cheap. Of course, we picked through, and anything that was worth listing on eBay, we would, but there was a lot of inventory that was left over that kind of wasn't worth us putting in that effort to list on eBay. And people were still able to come to the flea market, buy it, and then, there was a lot of room where they could still profit it if they resold it. Consignment stores are also a really good place to look for inventory. There's a consignment store that we were putting our inventory in when we were doing storage units with Ryan, and that is called the Peddler's Mall. There's one in Apache Junction, that's where we were at, and then there's another one that they're opening in the Mesa area if you happen to be local and you're listening. And with that, you paid for a little booth, and you could put whatever you wanted in there, and then you tagged everything with your vendor number and the price. And if somebody was interested in an item, they would bring it up to the counter and they would buy it there, and the people that were working there would do everything. So we didn't have to physically be at the consignment place, which that was a plus, but on the downside, you're giving them a commission for selling it. But there were a lot of different booths. There was like sport cards, there was Western gear. We kind of had everything. We had golf clubs, golf polos, a bunch of stuff from storage units that we knew, like knick-knack things, glassware that people would be looking for in that area. But some of that stuff you can get for cheap, especially if they're running sales. A lot of times what we did was put the booth on 50% off, and then you go in there and you're able to, get things much cheaper. Consignment stores are all over, and I think those are a really good place that you don't see a lot of people post about. Retail stores can still be a good place to source items. Walmart is a good one. There's Ross, Marshall's, DD's Discount out here for us. Really any retail store, you can look in the clearance section for stuff on sale or that's heavily marked down, and that could be a good way to find inventory. What's nice about that is it's going to be all new with tags, which sometimes is better because there is a higher price that you can ask for the items and you can make a little bit more. Now with some of the retail stores too, what is a good product to look for? Discontinued products. And we had Jen from Thrift to Travel. She was a guest on the podcast a while back, and she shared how she specializes in discontinued products. You can follow her on Instagram. She's also on YouTube, but on Instagram, she has a subscription where you can pay, I think it's 99 cents a month, which is nothing. And she gives you a lot of good discontinued items. And so you can learn what's discontinued. And when you're in these big box stores, or even in some of the smaller mom and pop stores, look for these items that are discontinued, because a lot of them, the value just keeps going up in time because the supply dwindles. And so you have a lot of people that are looking for their favorite foundation that is now discontinued, and they're going to go online to see if they can find it, and you can price those items a little higher and get more profit. There is a grocery outlet store that is out here, and we went there one time, and speaking of the discontinued items, I was looking up this gum. I was looking up a lot of stuff that they had because I heard that, some of these outlet stores for like grocery and retail, they can be profitable. And I found this gum, it's called dentine gum, and it was a specific flavor. It had been discontinued. And I want to say we bought all of them. Like I put them all in the cart. I think there was maybe 13 packs. And each one had so many in them. We've sold a pack of 5 for $69.99. 2 of them, actually. We did 2 sets of 5, and then we were left over with 3. So, okay, we had 13 packs. And then the 3 packs sold for $44.99. And we maybe paid $4 each, $3 each for them. So we were profiting like almost $175 just by, well, maybe not that much. We profited almost $200 on discontinued gum. And most of the time it went to like these weird cities in the East Coast. Oh, and in Florida too. So I'm like, I wonder if it's older adults that are like, I just love my dentine gum. You never know. But that was one item that we were not really looking for, but came across. And now if we ever find it again, we know definitely grab it. So discontinued items are good things to source. We did storage units for 6 months, and I did a podcast episode on the pros and cons about doing storage units, but they can be a really good way to find inventory. And most of the time, because the storage units you get, usually you're not paying a lot for, and you are getting a bunch of inventory, which means your buy cost for the inventory is going to be a lot lower. It is very time consuming, like I mentioned in that episode, because you have to clear the storage units out. You have to sort through them. There's trash, things you're going to throw in your dumpster, stuff you're going to donate, stuff for yard sales, things you might put on Whatnot and do live selling, things you might list on eBay, list locally. So it is very time consuming, but it is a fun way to get inventory. I had a lot of fun doing it. It just in the end wasn't something that we were able to commit to, especially with Casey going back to a corporate job. We just didn't have that time to be spending, and that's why we stopped doing storage units. But it's always something that we have talked about maybe continuing down the road if we ever get one that we think is going to be really good. I'm not opposed to getting another one as long as we have the room to sort through it and it's not going to interrupt what I'm building right now with going back to my roots, which is going to thrift stores and yard sales. I mentioned retail stores, but online can sometimes be a good place to source inventory. One website we have used is called America's Thrift Supply. They do mystery boxes. We did a 100-pound micro bale where it was a bunch of outdoor clothing. And then they do some like niche boxes, could be Carhartt jewelry, purses, Hoka shoes, different ones. I will say the buy cost did not meet our expectation because some of the clothing that we got in the micro bale, we did a YouTube video on it. If you want to watch it on the Freeway Flipper channel, you can kind of see what we got in it. But a lot of the clothes were really heavy, so we weren't getting, because some of them were Carhartt. Some of the Carhartt items were really heavy, and we didn't get as many items as we wanted. I cannot remember what the buy cost was, but we try to stay under $8 per item for a buy cost. Sometimes we spend more, sometimes we spend less. And it just, in the end, it was fun to try, and we definitely made money, but we didn't make a lot of money. And those are kind of the things we look at. Where are we sourcing? How much are we sourcing things for? And what in the end makes sense? Because you don't want to be sourcing from places if you aren't going to make the profit that you are looking to make. So that is a website that you can try. I don't know. If you guys have tried it, let me know. Otherwise, maybe you will try it and maybe it's going to work for you. Who knows? But there's another website called ThreadUp, which I really am not familiar with. I haven't bought anything on there, but I have seen a couple resellers post YouTube videos about ThreadUp. And from what I understand, you can either buy on there or you could sell on there. So I went on, and you can search items by brand size, save searches. So if there's a specific brand you're always looking for, then you can save the search and be notified or see the new listings that come up. But I clicked on the sale tab, and there was over 50,000 items. So I sorted price by low to high, and some of it was decent. I don't know. The one thing with some of these online sites, like if you're going to, let's say, Webstaurant, which is one we used to use for online arbitrage, you have to really sort through stuff. Not that it's any more time consuming than driving to a thrift store, looking at inventory, looking up items. I mean, you're doing the same thing online, and sometimes this can be more convenient for you listening if maybe you're a stay-at-home parent, maybe your kids are in school, you need something to do, maybe you are stuck at home and you aren't going out for some reason, maybe you're sick, I don't know. Whatever the reason is that you're at home, it's the convenience of being in your own home. And that's why I think online arbitrage was so popular back during COVID, because nobody was leaving their home. And that was one of the ways that people were, finding inventory. And that's why we joined the online arbitrage leads group, for them to tell us, where we should buy items, what we should be buying, what's going to profit us. But yeah, that's the only downfall of a website like ThreadUp, because you're going to have to learn how the website is and then sort through stuff, check back frequently. And I don't know, it might work, it might not. I know there's some resellers that use ThreadUp to source, so that could be an option. But they also, what I found interesting was you can order a bag, fill it up, send it to them, and then they sort through it. And if it is something they can list on their site, they'll list it. And if it sells, it's kind of like consignment, online consignment, which I thought was really interesting. I haven't heard if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. I haven't seen many videos out about ThreadUp. Maybe you guys have. I did notice at the top of the website, there was like a 50% off plus free shipping. I don't know. When you're listening to this podcast, maybe they'll have it still, maybe they won't. But it could be another website that you check out just to see if there is any things you could buy to flip. Those were the ideas that I had, kind of how we have, always tried getting new inventory. A lot can depend on where you live. Maybe you don't have a Goodwill. Maybe you don't have a lot of thrift stores. All you can really do as a reseller is go out and try new things and constantly be open to changing how you're finding your inventory. Yard sales and garage sales, those are really good ideas. It is weather permitting. So maybe you live in Arizona like me, and we can only do yard sales really in the wintertime. Summers are tricky. Yes, there are people that still do them, but it is so freaking hot out here. Don't lie to people that say it's dry heat. It's still hot. It still gets humid during the summer because we have monsoon storms that roll through, and we don't do a lot of yard sales during the summer. A lot of time when people are doing yard sales, sometimes they're moving sales. They're needing to get rid of the stuff as fast as they can. They've got a lot on their plate. They're overwhelmed with having to move somewhere. And so they're willing to give you stuff for really, really cheap. I know when my sister was moving, I went over there and looked at how she had pricing on stuff, and I ended up buying a bunch of stuff. She had Coach stuff priced at like $3. I'm like, you haven't even used this. You still have the price tag in there. You bought this for this and you're trying to sell it for this. But I'm like, that's okay. Give me a deal. I'm your sister. And I bought a lot of stuff, but that's same with some of the people doing yard sales. They don't know the value of things. They don't know what they should charge. Or maybe they're just trying to make a little money to pay for a moving truck, and they just don't care. They just want that stuff out of there. So yard sales and garage sales are always good. One tip I have for that, which I've seen out here a lot, is people get to like Sunday, kind of like how my sister was. What do you do with that stuff? You donate it or you put it up for free. Or if you're at a yard sale, you could ask somebody, I see that you're only doing the yard sale. It ends today. If you have stuff that you are wanting to donate, I'd happily take it and get rid of it for you. Here's my number. I know that people have done that and been successful in getting inventory. And sometimes it might be good inventory and sometimes it might not be bad, but at least it's free. You know what your buy cost is. So that could be a good way to get inventory. If you're watching on YouTube, let me know in the comments, what is your favorite way to source inventory? I know my favorite way is still going to be thrift stores. I still go to them. I still look for things. But I like to sprinkle in other ways too. I don't want to be complacent. I don't want to be stuck in my ways. I try to change and evolve. If I'm not getting a lot of inventory from thrift stores and I'm not seeing good stuff come in, then I'll kind of change up where I'm getting it. And I think that is important as resellers to remember that always expect the unexpected, like they say in Big Brother, and never think that things are always going to remain the same, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know when you're going to come along and you're going to get this mother load of inventory. You never know when it's going to go dry. So always be putting in the effort to think of different ways that you can find inventory.